Hello everyone, I'm Blumini, and today we're going to take a look at the trailer for Return to Silent Hill. With the great success of Silent Hill 2's remake and Silent Hill F, and Bloober's team working on a remake of the original Silent Hill, which I myself am very excited for, it's no surprise that the films have also gotten on the Silent Hill revival train as well. Okay, so the Silent Hill movies haven't always gotten the best rep.
Yeah, double homicide.
They're good, but not amazing. There's a million different reasons why people might think that it's bad or good. Personally, I thought the 2006 Silent Hill was good. As far as an adaptation goes, there's a lot to be desired. There's several new characters, some returning faces, and some big character changes. So while it's definitely not a substitute for the video game, it's good in its own right. Regardless of how you feel about the 2006 Silent Hill and 2012 Silent Hill Revelation, a new one is coming to theaters in January of next year, with a recent trailer of cautionarily positive reception being released recently. We'll get into this Bob and her moment a few months ago. Anyway, Christopher Gans, the director of the 2006 Silent Hill movie, has returned to Silent Hill after MJ Bassett directed Silent Hill Revelation due to Gans' disinterest in the direction that the project was heading. While the first two films could be compared to the stories of Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3 respectively, with several changes, Return to Silent Hill is very explicitly the story of Silent Hill 2 with several recognizable faces. Today we'll be going into the Return to Silent Hill trailer, talking about some notable similarities and possible differences within the story. Because we'll be getting into some theory territory near the end, I'll have to warn you now, moderate to heavy spoilers for Silent Hill 2, including some of its twists and endings. If you haven't played Silent Hill 2, I highly recommend it, both the remake and the original if you can find it somewhere. I personally played the original first and enjoyed it so much, but not everyone's up for tank controls for a game that came out 24 years ago, so, I understand if you just want to play the remake. And it's worth noting that, like the games, there's a sort of anthological feel to the Silent Hill franchise, and Gon stated in an interview that this movie is totally independent from the first two films. He explains it to be like The Twilight Zone, with independent stories connected more by themes and overall vibes than characters and overarching plot, sorta. And this is similar to the games franchise as well, as Silent Hill 2 stands alone from 1 and 3. Though 3 is a sequel to 1, and 4, The Room, has some connection to characters in 2. Okay, it's not important. The point is, you don't have to play Silent Hill 1 to play Silent Hill 2, and no, you don't have to watch Silent Hill or Silent Hill Revelation to watch Return to Silent Hill. Got it? Good. There's something else we have to talk about first, however, right before we get into the trailer. The synopsis and casting list reveal a very interesting character decision that I think are worth taking into consideration. Firstly, an early synopsis indicates that James is looking for Mary Crane. Now, if the last name Crane doesn't sound familiar to you, it doesn't to me either. As far as the game's canon, Mary's surname is Shepard Sunderland, Shepard presumably being her maiden name. It's only revealed in the manual, so we don't have a lot of story speculation on that hyphenation. However, and here's where things get interesting, the synopsis still refers to her as James's love, even though his surname has stayed Sunderland. So it's possible they're just using a different maiden name and that she never got married to him, but we'll get more into that later. I have some thoughts about this. Anyway, enough dawdling, let's venture back into the fog and into the trailer for Return to Silent Hill. Right off the bat, we get a look at James, our protagonist, played by Jeremy Irvine, sitting in a very uncomfortable looking chair, looking at something in what seems to be an art studio of sorts. There's some paintings on the wall and sculptures around, and in the next scene, we get a look at what he's presumably looking at in the scene, this painting of a woman with blonde hair, red lipstick, milky white eyes, and a thick red liquid on her fingers. Also, in the background, Promise Reprise is playing by the talented legend Akira Yamaoka. Hopefully this means we get some more of his tracks within this movie. The original 2006 Silent Hill movie actually used this one track, I think 4 times. So I hope we get some other songs, such as maybe Blank Fairy or even the Heaven Knights theme if they end up going there. The music plays a big role in Silent Hill, and because of this, it's definitely cemented as one of the most iconic collection of music, in my head at least, from a video game. It's unreal how much I remember every single piece and how they're used within the story. And this actually goes for the other Silent Hill games as well. Silent Hill is just used so well, and it's due in no small part due to Yamaoka. Next, we get a look at James driving, as well as James entering the bathroom, the same bathroom that opens the Silent Hill 2 game as Mary's letter is read. Mary's letter, however, is noticeably different. We get a clear look of it actually in the trailer, as it reads, "Some time has passed, I know that, but I'm begging you to please come back to our special place. Something's happened. Please, James, I need, something. Love, Mary." This letter has a much different tone than the original letter that James reads. "In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you." This trailer has a much more active and ominous tone, with Mary literally calling him back desperately, saying something's happened, without being specific, of course. These films have never entirely been faithful adaptations to the games, but this letter, one of the most poignant moments at several points in the game, being the first and last thing you hear, is sort of a telling sign of how big a deviation this film likely is. One of the major twists of Silent Hill 2 that happens near the end is discovering that the letter James reads simply doesn't exist, as after a major encounter it becomes just a blank piece of paper and later simply vanishes from James's inventory. The real letter is much longer, but James had essentially imagined and manifested this truncated version of the letter through guilt and denial. Part of the reason that I find this so effective in the game is because A, the false letter has no conclusion. It's just a string of vague thoughts that end with, "I'm somewhere you know," like we're playing a game of Marco Polo, and B, the finalized version of the letter is Mary's final thoughts prior to her passing in a letter she asked the nurses to give to James after she thought she would die. Even when she writes that she's waiting for James, she's talking about something else, waiting for James to come see her in the hospital. James is just misconstruing the letter to think that she's talking about being alive somewhere in the town. The trailer, however, makes it seem like Mary is in some sort of danger, like she's asking James to help with some sort of threat, rather than it being an emotional release of all her feelings simply cut short. Especially since this letter actually does have an ending, with "Love Mary" at the end. Of course, I could be super wrong about all this. After all, there is a false letter in the games. There's nothing stopping the movie from implementing a similar aspect that indicates she needs to tell him about her diagnosis, or maybe that the something is knowing she's going to die, or maybe that there's just a different entire message entirely. It's just a very different letter tonally that I thought was important to get into a little bit. Next, we get a look at presumably Lake Toluca in the daytime, as well as some shots of a Lakeview restaurant and bar location based on the sign in the background. In the first overhead shot in the far distance, there's a collection of buildings that very well could be the Lakeview Hotel itself, as in the games after James rows that damn boat across the fog, which took me 4 minutes and 16 seconds my first time, by the way. The hotel is basically right on the water, with James only having to cross the docks before arriving at the front doors. The scene shows James and Mary, played by Hannah Emily Anderson, sharing a moment together at the Lakeview Hotel, as well as another scene of a shared kiss between them with butterflies, moths, or some other lepidoptera flying around them. This rendition of Mary, by the way, looks very similar to the painting within the first scene. Perhaps James has an art side gig of some sort, since apparently he's just some sort of unnamed clerk in the games. Anyway, like I said before, with Mary's last name being revealed as Crane from this movie, neither James nor Mary in any of these scenes is wearing a ring of some sort, so it's possible that they just never got married in this film's timeline. Now, the butterflies, or moths, in the background of their kiss is interesting, as Mary and Maria have been linked to them before, with Mary being closer to the moths, usually a symbol of death and mysterious danger, and Maria being butterflies, usually a symbol of beauty and freedom. Maria even has a butterfly tattoo on the bottom of her stomach, or on her chest if you played the remake. Both represent transformation and rebirth, but with different connotations, and with the moth imagery later in this trailer, as well as an acting credit for Moth Mary. Hopefully there's a lot more explanation of these themes, as the dichotomy of Mary and Maria is one of my absolute favorite things from these games, and the remake even expanded on this a little bit more with the fresh apple, the coin puzzle, and of course the scarlet egg from the original games. The next few scenes are of the town of Silent Hill, fog and all, as James calls out to no response. We then get a quick setting change as the foggy town of Silent Hill turns into a snowy, populated town. While Gon stated that this movie is standalone from the previous two, it's worth noting that the original 2006 movie explains that the original inhabitants of the town were witch hunters, and that it's been long since abandoned, not even showing up on maps. However, the movie does repeat that Sybil Bennett found a young boy who was kidnapped and thrown into some mines only like 2 years ago, so it doesn't seem like nobody knows of this place or that it's hidden from the world. I bring this up because a voice in the background during the scene says everyone got sick in Silent Hill, implying there will be a revelation as to why the town is seemingly abandoned. While the 2006 movie already provides an answer, the answer being that the fire that would burn Alessa Gillespie also burned down the entirety of the town and that several of the bodies were never recovered. Fun fact, the idea that it's actually ash coming from the sky and not snow in the original Silent Hill 1 game comes from the movie, which bases Silent Hill on the city of Centralia, Pennsylvania, a real city and ghost town, where an accidental ignition of trash in an underground mine strip actually led to the fires that it's known for. Anyway, this different explanation for the backstory of Silent Hill might just be a way to show just how far removed this movie is from the previous two, which were sort of a hodgepodge of elements from Silent Hills 1, 2, and 3, while this film seems to be much more consolidated on 2 specifically. In this scene, we also get a backside look at Maria wearing some sort of dark red or pink, maybe purple coat. I'm not good with colors. We see in a further scene that she's wearing the PS2 Maria outfit based on these images. Maybe around the time when she first meets James, she's wearing this purplish pink jacket though, which is more reminiscent of her remake outfit. Next up is another memorable scene with James getting his radio as well as his
The Silent Hill protagonist standard issue steel pipe
from a hole in the wall, just like he does in the games. As we cut back to the foggy town, flickering lights and mannequins in the distance can barely be made out, as there's some sort of vine-like darkness creeping about the streets and tangling onto cars, walls, streetlights, and as we pan around, we get a shot of James on the radio. This sort of vine effect can actually be seen in the original 2006 Silent Hill film in certain scenes, and it sort of symbolizes the other world creeping into our world. So perhaps this sort of effect was taken specifically to reference this idea or just use this idea, as also in the scene there can be sirens heard in the background, and sirens were an indicator in the original 2006 film that the other world was coming. It is interesting, however, that based on how we see the vines sort of spring to life from where the camera is and then turn 180 degrees to see James, whatever this smoky darkness is seems to be coming from James, which is very interesting. Then we cut back to another shot of the same road but with a lying figure outside of the hole in the wall. The truck, stoplights, and stop signs let us know that this is the same location. My guess is that this takes place before the previous scene. Possibly James takes down this lying figure after retrieving the radio, similar to how he does in the game. This would also line up with the games, as James, after taking down the enemy, actually walks out of the hole in the wall and then gets a message from the radio, which I believe could be this scene right here. Next, we get a look at another familiar face, Angela Orozco. In this scene with Angela and her knife, it seems very similar to the original in the scene where we meet her in the Blue Creek apartment with the distraught Angela with her knife in a room with a large mirror. Perhaps it also takes place in Blue Creek Apartments, but there's no way to really tell. Angela is also played by Hannah Emily Anderson, which is a very interesting choice. As far as Mary and Maria are concerned, it would have been strange if they didn't use the same actor, but also having Angela be played by the same actress could mean something within the story. As far as we can tell, this is our only scene within the trailer, but I do have something to say about this later on. Within the original story, Angela has some really important scenes for the overall messages of Silent Hill 2 and is the first person we actually get a cutscene with in the cemetery. She even got an additional scene in the remake that further showcases her characterization and just helps her be more present, since she kind of gets lost for a while after Maria shows up. I do hope they do her story justice, not only because of how powerful and emotionally charged it is, but because her story alongside Eddie's acts as a narrative foil to James, and together the three of them sort of shed light on each other's struggles and backstories. The next scene shows James in front of some windows with a bunch of red moths or butterflies obscuring it, and that noticeable vine-like crack creeping up the wall. We already discussed that the moths and butterflies are used to symbolize Mary and Maria, and while this specific scene never happens within the game, this scene reminds me a ton of the scene of James watching the special tape he finds on the first floor of the hotel. In the original, after watching the tape, the room remains mostly the same. The scenery only changes afterwards once you leave the room. In the remake, however, the hotel room itself becomes dilapidated and torn after watching it, with a sickly yellow glow peeking through tattered curtains and smudged muddy windows. If this does take place in the hotel room, it would make sense why the moths are attracted to the window and are swarming it and obscuring it in a similar way. So that's my personal theory for what this scene could be in the final production. Next, we get a look at a large knife being dragged across the ground, as well as confirmation that Pyramid Head will be in this movie. I mean, of course he would be, he's so iconic, and they used him in the past two films despite him having no business being there, and also Homecoming, which I haven't played personally, but know was greatly influenced by the original Silent Hill movie, and used Pyramid Head as a major marketing tactic. We don't have time to get into that. Maybe if I play it, I'll make a video on it. I do want to get around to playing Homecoming and Downpour, since I know there's somewhat of the black sheep of the Silent Hill games, but that's for a later video. Point is, Pyramid Head is back where he belongs, in the deepest, most nasty parts of James's psyche, and from this one scene of him grabbing James's hair through these metal bars, he's very intense and intimidating looking. This part reminded me of the part of the Silent Hill game where you're exploring through the Blue Creek apartments, and he's just kind of standing there on the other side of some metal bars. This could take place literally anywhere. It's too dark to make out anything super noteworthy, but that would give us a setting. We also get our first look at Eddie Dombrowski, played by Pierce Egan. He says, "You did it, Jimmy. You woke him up," from the other side of these metal bars, with some yellowish lighting from a window behind him that looks even more similar to that window in the hotel room I was talking about before. Based on the trailer, it looks like Eddie is referring to Pyramid Head as him. I really hope this isn't the case, but I wouldn't be surprised by this deviation, as Pyramid has been used as just another creature in Silent Hill in multiple instances due to his iconic nature, rather than a specific force against James. James in the original PS2 game, upon first meeting Eddie in the Blue Creek apartments, asks him about the red pyramid thing, to which Eddie doesn't know what he's talking about because Eddie can't see Pyramid Head. As time has gone on, Silent Hill 2 has definitely come out on top as the original 4 games as the most memorable, which is why a lot of this trailer seems to be much more faithful both in the cast of characters and locations. We then get a shot of a large burning building in the distance, which, based on that overhead shot from earlier where I presumed this would be the Lakeside Hotel, both the structure of the building and presumably where the lake itself is would match up. It's hard to make out if this is just water or the land. This blue-green filter on the whole scene makes it really hard to tell, but my guess would be that this is either James leaving or arriving at the hotel. Based on the way he gets up and looks at the hotel makes me think that this could be him docking, but the fact that it's on fire makes me think that this could be James leaving after it's caught ablaze. Either is possible, as the hotel never catches fire in either game other than a specific scene with Angela, so any guess is a good guess. Next is a look at our final main player from the games, Laura, played by Evie Templeton, who is also the face and voice of her in the Silent Hill 2 remake. Unlike in the original game, where Laura is just sort of giving like normal child, they swapped her blue overalls and shirt with a ponytail for this pink flowery blouse looking thing and keeping her hair down. I think they're trying to go for a much creepier angle with her, which we'll just have to wait and see how effective that is, as in the game, Laura's just kind of a bit of a brat to some characters, but overall just a normal little girl surrounded by crazy people. We then get another look at James sitting down with some ash and embers burning around him, leading me to believe that this also takes place in the Lakeview Hotel as it's burning. As for where exactly this could be, almost immediately this made me think of the lobby area where the music box puzzle is completed on the first floor of the hotel. There's a few chairs in the corner in the original game, but in the remake it's a much larger area and even has a similar looking couch. The music box puzzle here is the main puzzle of the Lakeview Hotel, requiring you to obtain different pieces to assemble it before solving it, and getting the third floor corridor key to unlock a gate blocking James from reaching his hotel room. Perhaps something of similar importance takes place here. I'm curious as to how much puzzle aspect they'll incorporate into the movie, if at all. I understand removing a lot of them, as they're mostly for gameplay purposes, but it'll be interesting to see if there's any adaptations or similarities to them. Some of these puzzles do serve some of a narrative purpose, not all of them are just for the sake of giving the player something to do. The next scene is of Eddie laughing in some sort of tiled room, but what's more interesting is the shot of Mary in the burning Lakeview Hotel and a shot of James yelling out Mary's name. I think he says Mary anyway, the subtitles just say screaming, but this lighting looks like the flames making this orange glow. If this scene is in fact Mary walking up the burning staircase instead of Angela like it is in game, it could actually be noteworthy that Angela is played by the same actress as Mary and Maria. Perhaps this is some sort of final scene for her as it is for Angela, or perhaps symbolism of Mary dying and leaving James as he calls out to her, or even that Angela in this film is another representation of Mary like Maria. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this in the comments. I thought this was really intriguing on a rewatch and would love to know if you guys had any thoughts on these two pieces of information. The next few scenes give us a much better look at Maria, who is wearing basically a one-to-one of Maria's outfit from Silent Hill 2's original game, with her purple skirt, golden jewelry, blonde hair with pink tips, and a red crop top. Fun fact, this outfit is actually literally just an outfit Christina Aguilera wore for the Teen Choice Awards in 1999, but Maria wears it with tall boots instead of heels. Just a cool reference. In this scene, we watch James and Maria get chased down a hallway by a group of nurses. In both the original game and the remake, James and Maria run down a long hallway in the Brookhaven Hospital's Otherworld by Pyramid Head.
Walk for me, walk for me, walk for me, walk for me.
So my guess would be that this either takes place within the hospital or is simply another scene meant to reference the original. This group of nurses actually does also appear in the original 2006 movie, so I wonder if it could be a reference to that as well. I think this is a good time to talk about the leaks that first came about from this movie, specifically these two images of both Maria and James that were the first thing a lot of people, myself included, saw from this movie. And, okay, I'm gonna say this as nicely as possible. This bob, it's bobbing. Rather than Maria's usually sideswept bangs, they decided on this platinum bob with angles. Like, this thing has straight across cut bangs and is sharply cut across. It's just too much to ignore. It looks like Maria is wearing the wig, and I get it. Several people have pointed out that it gives a sort of cheap, colorful wigs for burlesque show performers. I do agree with the sentiment to an extent, but it also just looks just a little silly. Maria is meant to be provocative looking, but she also is her own person technically. Born from a Wish lets us know that she's her own person, even before James meets her, but she looks like she just found this wig in a Maria Spirit Halloween cosplay set. Actually, while I was looking stuff up for this video, two separate Redditors said the hair reminded them of Susie from The Sphere Hunter, and okay, I kinda see it. By the way, check out The Sphere Hunter if you want to hear more about Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and other horror games and stuff. Her quality is like crazy good. This isn't like sponsored, I just love her videos. She does like amazing research. Anyway, enough fanboying for me. Whether or not this Party City wig is relevant to the film, we obviously don't know yet, and personally, I can overlook something like this and write it off as being intentional anyway. Finally, our last three scenes show James, with the first of him in another burning area within the Lakeview Hotel, looking up at something. The chairs in their arrangement are the same, actually, as the Lakeview Hotel rooftop restaurant area from the Mary flashback moment, so there could actually be something in the sky, perhaps the credited Moth Mary flying around up there, in the hospital bed cage, I don't know. If she is there, it makes sense why James just kind of stands there as these hands reach out to him in the next scene. James usually isn't all there mentally. I mean, he questions some things, but overall just seems to be looking for Mary and doesn't mind having to stomp and shoot a few mannequins along the way. There is also someone's face just off screen. It's kind of hard to see. So it seems like this rooftop cafe type area might be the movie parallel to the empty roof of the Lakeview Hotel where James fights Mary/Maria at the end. The final scene is of James covering his ears as lights flicker behind him and a voice in the background says, "I'm here. I'll always be here." This line kind of reminds me of Maria's line in her jail cell within the labyrinth where she says, "I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real." But it could just be another trailer line they thought was cool. I do think he's talking to Mary though, perhaps in a bit of a mirroring of the original line where he's trying to convince her to stay. We did see that Mary specifically is in the movie and not just Maria, as she's standing on the bottom of the burning staircase, so it's possible that James has some time to talk with her, like how he does in the ending of Silent Hill 2. Perhaps it's him reconciling with her, like spiritually or something. And that's actually it for the trailer. My overall thoughts is that there's definitely going to be some major deviations, however, some of the original scenes and some of the skeleton is definitely visible with certain scenes and design choices. Mary's letter, Pyramid Head, the radio scene, Maria's outfit, the Lakeview Hotel are all major pieces and players that I'm really curious to see what goes on. Now, however, I wanted to go into some kind of theory territory. Slight spoilers ahead actually for Silent Hill 4 The Room, which is definitely the least talked about of the 4 Silent Hill games made by Team Silent, but has some interesting plot elements and an engaging second half despite some other major issues. If you can find a copy somewhere or have other means of playing it, I definitely recommend it. As I said before, James and Mary have their hotel room, which is the main goal of the game to reach. After reading that she's in our special place, he figures it could be the hotel when meeting Maria for the first time and tries to get there for the rest of the game. Their hotel room is room 312. Both in the original and in the remake. While I was doing some digging actually about this film, I came across a Reddit post by the user VastOrchid9392 on the Silent Hill subreddit that included a clapperboard. Who named this? Anyway, a photo of a clapperboard with the name Room 318 on it. Codenames for movies to prevent leaks are pretty common. Avengers Infinity War and Endgame were called Mary Lou, Revenge of the Jedi was Blue Harvest, The Matrix was The Burly Man, there's many more. But the name Room 13 had me interested. In Silent Hill 2, Room 13 of the Lakeview Hotel isn't anything too important, but it got me thinking about other rooms, or The Room. Silent Hill 4 The Room was developed alongside Silent Hill 3 and was planned to be released as a spin-off title. In an interview with Akira Yamaoka and Masashi Tsuboyama, the background and motion designer of the original Silent Hill, director and town designer of Silent Hill 2, and art director of Silent Hill 4 The Room, it's mentioned several times that Silent Hill 4 was set on changing certain aspects of the series and attempting something new. But why bring up Silent Hill 4? Like I said, this trailer seems to be closely adapting Silent Hill 2, with all our major players, some iconic enemies and locations, and even scenes all taken from the same game. Well, put on your tinfoil hats, because it's time to get into some crazy crack theory territory. Just a warning, I don't truly believe everything I'm about to say is going to happen. A lot of this is very speculative and almost entirely relies on sources outside of the trailer. I'm mostly doing this for fun and because I thought it was interesting the more I looked into it. Anyway, let's get into it. So remember that image I found on Reddit with the title of Room 318 on it? Well, I happen to recall that Silent Hill 4 The Room was previously known as Room 302, named after the apartment number our main character Henry spends a large portion of the game healing, warding off hauntings, and reading diaries. Within this game, a group of 21 victims are targeted by a man, Walter Sullivan, in an attempt to finish a ritual known as the 21 Sacraments that will bring about his paradise and reunite him with his mother, which is the apartment room 302. Yes, his mom is Henry's apartment building. We don't have time to get into all that. I bring this up because of the casting credits and a previous synopsis that give us a list of names not mentioned within the trailer. Dara, Caitlin, M, Cal, Claudette, the Myers twins, and Jacob Crane, who is not listed in the casting credits with the rest, but is actually mentioned in an early synopsis for Return to Silent Hill, where he's described as the owner of this dark underworld James has fallen into. Many online have pointed out that this sounds very familiar to the concept of the Dark Alessa from the original movie, which was a splintered part of Alessa that could call upon the otherworld. If James had, for some reason, splintered off from a once whole being due to guilt and denial over the death of his wife and his hand in it, it may explain why this mysterious character and Mary Crane have the same last name. If James and Jacob, who sound very similar by the way, are two sides of the same coin, then Mary's last name is because she is married to James, just not this version of him. This got me thinking, what else could a dark version of James do? Perhaps kill a few kids? Maybe more? Maybe himself? Walter Sullivan, despite being mostly present in Silent Hill 4 The Room, technically makes his debut in Silent Hill 2 through newspaper articles and a headstone, which go over the events of him murdering two twins and later taking his own life in prison due to the fear of punishment from a red devil. Sullivan is also said to be rambling on, saying, "Forgive me, I did it, but it wasn't me." Could James, or Jacob, have murdered not only his wife, but also these Myers twins alongside the other unknown names on this list? Both Sullivan and Sunderland are due to be punished by a red entity, and Sullivan's punisher, the Red Devil, now known as cultist Jimmy Stone, wore a red triangular hood similar to that of the one donned by our muscular adversary, Pyramid Head. Both of these characters are also heavily characterized by a sort of guilt and sometimes desire for punishment after killing somebody, with Walter Sullivan taking his own life for fear of punishment after killing the twins, and James actually committing suicide in one of the endings of Silent Hill 2 after realizing and accepting that he killed his wife Mary. It is notable, however, that despite Walter Sullivan taking his own life as part of the 21 Sacraments, he actually split his soul in two by doing so, allowing him to roam as both the killer and an innocent child. So let's clarify and clean up this wild theory. Based on prototype names of Return to Silent Hill based on Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill for the Room, named Room 318 and Room 302 respectively, I believe these unknown names may be the murder victims of Walter Sullivan's Round 1 killings committed by Jacob Crane, including a set of twins and possibly his wife, Mary Crane. Afterwards, ridden with guilt and fear of punishment from the Red Devil, he commits suicide, and his soul is split in two, giving us Jacob Crane, the twisted serial killer, and James Sunderland, the innocent everyman, who returns to Silent Hill after his love, but finds a twisted version of his once love as Maria. Okay, that was a little intense, and given that none of these people seem to even make appearances within the trailer, and technically Mary/Maria is the final adversary of both the original Silent Hill 2 game and seemingly this movie based on the moth form we speculated on earlier, none of this could mean anything. As far as the trailer goes, the movie seems to have all the right pieces to be pretty faithful to the games despite differences, but we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can make sure you get more videos from me in the future. Let me know your thoughts on this trailer and if you have any other theories you'd like to share. Until then though, see you on the other side!